right, so go ahead and just kind of snuggle down into a comfortable seated position. If you ever find that one of your knees is bothering you, you can always try putting the other foot in front and just see if that kind of helps a little bit. Usually there's a little bit more tension on the knee that's out in front. You can always prop it up or just raise your seat a little bit higher. So find a comfortable seat. Once you're there, take those shoulders, draw them up to your ears as you take a big inhale. And then sigh it out and let those eyes close. Let those shoulders drop. Allow yourself to come into the room, onto your mat, and into your body. Allowing yourself to connect with your surroundings. Allowing yourself to just become more present with every passing moment. Acknowledge the support of your legs and your seat as you're on the floor. And then acknowledge all the space around you, not only in front, but also beside and behind, and even above you. Just acknowledging all that space that you are in, bringing yourself more into the present. And take a full inhale here. And let it go. And allow yourself to drop more into the physical body here. Scanning it over, checking in, acknowledging those areas that aren't feeling so well today. Any areas that you need to be more mindful of due to injuries or fatigue. Any of those joints, your knees, ankles, hips, wrists, things that aren't feeling so good, be mindful of those. And remember, when you're going to your edge, make sure you're not going past that edge. Make sure it's an edge that you can sit with that discomfort in a way that's not painful or going to be painful later. And taking an inhale here. And let it go. Starting to drop into that mental and emotional body. Acknowledging where your thoughts are. Notice what's bubbling up. Give each one of those some validity and some loving kindness. And anything that is not going to serve you in a positive way, see if you can give that some loving kindness, attach it to a bubble or a cloud, and send it away. When it comes back, reattach it to that cloud or bubble, and send it away again. In our class today, we're going to be working with some affirmations if you'd like to. Affirmations are just ways of reprogramming our brain and our body, our subconscious body, to start to love and enjoy ourselves. So it'll help us heal our body. So you're more than welcome to work with them or not. I'll present them as it goes through, and you have the choice to use them or not. As you continue to acknowledge those thoughts, a little bit more about the practice ahead. We're going to be working into the kidney and the urinary bladder meridians. They're a pair of meridians. The yin side is the kidney, and the yang is the bladder. So we'll be working those two pairs specifically in the sequence that we have tonight. The kidney meridian, or the function of the kidneys, is to balance the fluids in the body. It nourishes the bones and the marrow inside those bones. And then the urinary bladder helps support those kidneys by eliminating the waste that the kidneys accumulate, allowing for a healthier body. Taking a full inhale here. And sigh it out. Just allow yourself to become more present here. kidney meridian is that of our sexual confidence. So 2 affirmations that go along with this, and these affirmations come from Louise Hay. And one of them can be, I am sexually safe. Another affirmation for the kidney meridian is, my sexual forces are balanced. So if one of those resonates true with you, you want to make that your intention for your practice today, you can allow that to start to settle in. The urinary bladder the meridian is a line of peace and harmony. And those affirmations related to that are, I am peaceful, I am balanced, or all conflicts are cleared. So whatever one you want to work with in your body and in your mind today, if at all, allow that to take form in your mind's eye today. And just refer back to that affirmation throughout the practice. When your mind wanders, just bring it back to that affirmation. I'm taking a full inhale here. And sigh it out. Allow your eyes to blink open. And slowly extend those legs. Take them out for a moment, pointing and flexing through the feet. Giving those legs a little shake. This first pose we're going to get into is going to really get into both the kidney and the bladder meridians that run along the backs of the legs, as well as into the ankle. We're going to do an ankle and a toe stretch. So I usually like to have a little cushioning for my knees and for my ankles just at the beginning. And I have my blanket down, or if you're on carpet, it's totally fine. But then coming to that space, and you're going to tuck your toes, look back to your toes, make sure all 5 toes on each side are pointing forward. And then you have the option, you can stay here with your hands forward, sitting back on your heels. So you're finding that stress in the ankle joint and the toe joints. Or if it's okay for you, start to sit yourself up. So we're going to be here for 1 minute, and then we're going to alternate this between this pose and then an ankle stretch. So it's just a nice little way to start to get going into it, alternating back and forth. I've been doing this stretch now this is my 10th day in a row of doing this. And it was a challenge presented to me by my instructor, Denise Payne. And she says in traditional Chinese medicine, they do this, they consider healthy ankle joints the key to a long life. Because if you can no longer walk or move with good mobility and fluidity, you start to age faster, which kind of makes sense to me. So I was like, well, why not? You know, I've lived hard in my body, especially my ankles, so I should take care of them now. And then start to lean forward, point those toes back, and see if you can sit back on your heels. If you can't quite sit back on your heels, maybe sit up on a block. If it feels okay to sit on your heels and you want a little bit more stress in that ankle joint, you can start to lean those knees up towards the ceiling. So again, we're only going to be here for a minute, and then we're going to alternate between these two more rounds. If you're really getting into those ankles, if even this dorsiflexion here of the ankles is too much, you could roll up a towel and put it under your ankles and then sit down as well. But all along the backs of your legs are those meridians of the kidney and the urinary bladder. And so we're compressing those, trying to get out all of those blockages that might be happening. And then start to lean forward, tuck those toes again, make sure all toes are pointing forward, and then start to sit back again. And start to maybe bring that intention back to mind. And if you're not working with an intention today, maybe it's just to notice the sensations happening in the body. And slowly start to transition, pointing those toes back, sitting back onto the heels. Then leaning back, you always can, if you can't really keep your balance leaning back, you can always take a cushion or a block, slide it under those knees until you feel the right amount of compression into those ankles. The majority of the meridian lines either end or start in the feet. So this is also a great start to the practice to stimulate all of the meridian lines, all of those energy channels, getting the energy starting to flow, especially from the feet. And it's considerably helpful, I find, after sitting for a long period of time during the day at a desk with the feet pretty stationary or crossing the legs, but just getting into those ankles. And then starting to transition into that last round, making sure those toes are all pointing forward and sitting back here. Just tapping into those sensations that are happening in the feet. Making sure it's not painful, but discomfort is where you want to sit in. Sitting in that discomfort can help us on so many levels, physically, mentally, emotionally. Just acknowledge what arises here. And then transitioning to that last ankle stretch. Maybe seeing if it's accessible to go a little deeper. If not, holding where is your edge. A few more rounds of breath here. And then slowly roll forward. Shift your hips to one side, your ankles to the other, and then take those legs out in front of you. Just pause there for a moment with your legs out. Just kind of notice all that sensation that's happening behind the legs, in the thigh, or in the shins, into the ankles. Maybe even close the eyes and just really tapping into those sensations happening here. And then when you're comfortable enough, maybe start to wiggle those toes, maybe roll the ankles, make sure you do both directions. And then maybe bounce the legs or waggle those legs side to side, whatever's going to feel best for you. And then we're going to go into another little stretch here. Just blocking out the noises. For our toes and our ankles. So we're going to come into a butterfly position, right? So a long-legged butterfly. So if you need to prop your hips up on something, you can. If you need to support your ankles, just kind of bringing those legs out. You have props you can place underneath your thighs in case it's too intense on your inner thigh. That's the kidney meridian that goes along in there. We're going to take our hands, and if you have socks on, you'll need to take them off. I have my socks for later. But you're going to take your right hand to your left foot, and you're going to braid your fingers in between your toes. Hopefully they fit. Eventually, over time, you're going to braid your toes. I'm not quite there. If you can braid your toes in and out, awesome, do that. Then take your left hand And take that and braid it through the toes on the right side. And then you're going to take your thumb and just press onto the outer edge of that big toe. So a lot of the meridians end in the toes or start in the toes. So this is going to, once again, stimulate all those. And then if you're okay, maybe you start to lengthen forward, right? You're getting into your hips, into your low back, if that's accessible to you. Or you can stay upright. So your choice. And those legs can be as close or as far apart as you need from your body to allow for your hips to come forward. Trying to keep your legs relaxed. And then tapping into that affirmation that you're using today. If you're not using an affirmation, just tapping into those sensations that are happening in the feet, the low back, and the hips. So through this practice of yoga, especially yin yoga, but also the vinyasa yoga, we compress and then we stretch these different meridian lines, these energy channels. And by doing that, we help release any blockages that might be in there, in areas where it might be tight. And usually that tends to happen in the joints. Our joints tend to hold all of that blockage. And so this is a good way to bring energy, to bring nourishment to those joints, to those areas where it might be holding some blockages that doesn't allow for that energy, that prana or that chi, to start to continuously run through our body at a steady state. There's a lot of reasons why blockages happen. It could be trauma, it could be emotional stress, it could be physical stress. There's a lot of different areas of your life that could affect having these blockages. It could be the environment, the things you eat or don't eat. So just by being here on your mat, you're already doing something awesome for your body, helping to get it back in balance. So if you do happen to have your toes braided in some shape or form, unbraid them and then braid them back again. So if you have your hands, keep your hands where they are. But if your toes are actually braided, you can switch them around so the opposite big toe is on top. And we'll stay here for a couple more minutes. During these 2 minutes, just notice how the body moves as you breathe. for one more minute here. Take a full inhale here. And let it go. Ever so slowly bring yourself back up. Slowly release one finger at a time. And then squeeze those toes, scrunch those toes in, and then spread them wide and wiggle them. Letting that go. And then helping those knees up. Bring the soles of the feet to the floor, hug those knees, bring your forehead toward your knees, and just pause here for a moment. Noticing the effects of that pose on the body. And then from here, we're going to transition to our belly. We're going to come into Sphinx pose or seal pose. And I like to always have something underneath my chest. So I'm going to roll up my blanket and have that there just underneath my sternum. So as I come down onto my belly, I'm going to bring my elbows up underneath my shoulders if that's okay, and then slide that bolster right underneath my sternum. That just gives me a little bit more support. It's less pressure on my back, but you don't need to have that by any means. And then from here, take those legs a little bit wider if you feel too much compression in the low back, and just kind of wiggle the hips a little bit, let those legs relax, let the feet flop where they may. And then just start to settle in here. So you have the option, hands can be just forward. You can even bring them more forward if it's less pressure for your back. You can bring them back more. You can even prop them up on something if you want more stress in the back. And then your head can stay neutral. Maybe it rests on a block. Maybe it drops down and you get into the spine, into that cervical spine. Just kind of settling in here into Sphinx pose. So you have a little bit of targeted sensation in the low back, along the spine, maybe even into the shoulders, the elbows from the pressure on stacking those shoulders over those elbows. And maybe even into that cervical spine. So this, talking a little bit more deeply about the kidney meridian. The kidney meridian starts all the way at your inner pinky toe. And it goes back along the foot behind the inner ankle. And then it goes from the inner ankle up to the inner calf, the inner knee, the inner groin, all the way up to the pubic bone. And then it goes into the body up to the base of the spine, your tailbone. And then from there, it splits off and it goes and connects to the kidneys and the bladder. And then from there, it comes back out through the pubic bone area and then runs up your abdominals, the front side of your belly, kind of what we're stimulating now. And it comes all the way up across your chest, and that's kind of where, if you're having something underneath your sternum, you're pressing that into that part of the meridian line underneath the sternum. And it continues up to the collarbone. It goes back deep into the body, comes up the inside of the throat, and then ends at the base of the tongue. It's a nice long line, a nice that meridian line. So we're stimulating that here on the front side of the body with that compression and lengthening of it. So we're pushing down into it with the belly, but then we're also lengthening it a little bit on the front side. So again, that kidney is about our sexual confidence. See how it touches so closely into the genital area, that pubic bone area. Settling in for these last few minutes. Either coming back to your intention, your affirmation, or just noticing what happens in the body as you breathe. And taking a full inhale here. And let it go. Slowly start to take out anything you might have underneath you. And let yourself come all the way down, resting your forehead on your hands, maybe even turning your head to the left, and then drawing that left knee out to the side, bending it, releasing into the low back. And then sliding that left leg back, turning your head to the right, drawing that right knee out to the side. Take a few moments here. And then slide that right leg back. Bring your head back to neutral. Slide those hands by your side, tuck your toes, press back knees. Just come to hands and knees for a moment. Resist the urge to go into child's pose just yet. We will eventually get there. So this next chance, you have the option of doing camel pose or bridge pose. We're gonna bring a little bit of some yang practice, a little bit of heated, but we're gonna hold it 3 times, 1 minute each. So you have the option. So if camel is one of those things that you like to do, that's one option. If it's not good for your back, you can lay down onto your back and do bridge pose. So you have that as an option, or even supported bridge with a block underneath for the whole time. so you don't have to alternate. So you have different options for yourself. So I'm going to lead through camel. I'm going to have my blocks in case I need them here. And I'm going to come to my knees. I'm going to tuck my toes. And then from here, you have different options. We're going to just hold this for 1 minute. Hands to your hips and roll the shoulders back, chin to your chest, and then maybe hands to ankles or maybe hands to blocks. Just pressing those hips forward so we're opening up. We're once again lengthening that kidney meridian. It's okay if things are engaged here, we're just lengthening. We're finding a little bit of stress in that low back, maybe the shoulders. Good, take an inhale here. And then as you exhale, slowly come forward. Sit either back onto those heels or just bring your hands forward into a little tabletop position. Take a round of breath here. Let's take 3 rounds of breath. And then we'll repeat. And slowly bring yourself back up. If you're in bridge, lift those hips. If you're in camel, hands to the low back, press those hips forward first. And then start to reach back, maybe for blocks, maybe for heels, chin toward your chest. Press down into the shins, press down into the tops of the feet or the toes. Finding length in the front body. Stay with your breath nice and smooth. And slowly coming forward. And then once again, either sitting back on your heels or coming to that table position. Just finding a neutral spine. Try not to do any counter poses yet. We will get there. Two more full rounds of breath here. Bring that affirmation back to mind if you have one. Otherwise, notice the sensations that are going to happen in the body. And slowly start to bring yourself back up, coming back into that pose for the last time. Drawing that chin into the chest helps get the end point of that kidney meridian at the base of the throat and the back of the tongue. See if you can let your belly be big. Few more cycles of breath here. And then slowly making your way forward. Come to that neutral spine for 3 breaths. And then if you are on your back, hug your knees into your chest. If you're on your hands and knees, make those knees wide, come into child's pose. So lengthen back, set those hips back, Maybe even make the knees a little bit wider than normal. If you're on your back and you want to stay on your back rather than doing child's pose, you can do the happy baby. So you get a similar thing, but then draw the heels together, holding onto the heels, heels toward your bum, and draw the knees wide. So you can do the same thing on your back if you'd like. We're settling into this child's pose here. Letting yourself lengthen out. Arms reaching forward if it's okay, or you can bend the elbows, but let everything become heavy. And a little bit of pressure maybe on that inner groin. To the inner leg, the backs of the knees are definitely getting that compression again, the calves. And finding that length on the backside. So we compress the backside, we compress that urinary bladder. Just talking a little bit about that bladder line and where it runs from. Most of the yang meridians that the urinary bladder is part of start up toward the head or the chest and work their way toward the toes. So it's opposite direction of the yin. So the urinary bladder starts at the outer crease of the eye. It runs across the top of the head, so it starts on the inner eye, not the outer eye, the inner eye, goes up toward the forehead, goes back along the back of the head, the back of the neck, down to the shoulders, across the back of the shoulders, and then from there it breaks into two branches, so there's two parallel lines running on each side of the spine, so they're about 2 finger widths apart. They go all the way down the back of the body, into the sacrum, into the hips, the glutes, the backside, down into the sit bones. And then that meridian line runs down along the hamstrings, the backs of the knees, the backs of the calves. And it goes all the way to the outer foot and ends at the pinky toe. So both of these meridian lines have an ending or a starting point at that pinky toe. So in this pose here, we're getting that compression of the lower part of the meridian. And then by opening up the back, rounding that back a little bit, we're finding some lengthening or stretch of those meridian lines that we just compressed in the opposite pose for this meridian. So you have the option to stay here with your arms lengthening forward, or if you'd like to get into a little bit of a side stretch, start to lift yourself up and then walk yourself over to the right, finding a little bit of length on that left sideways. So you can even bend your right elbow, but reach through that left arm, and then let yourself drop back down toward the ground. So finding some compression on the right, some length on the left, and finding a little bit more compression on that right side of the hip, knee, and ankle. If you've walked yourself over toward the right, as you inhale, lift up. And then exhale, make yourself all the way back over to the opposite side. Really reaching out through that right arm, find that length on that right side. You can always bend your left arm and then let your head and chest drop down. Just notice how the body moves as you breathe, the different sensations that happen. And if you've walked yourself to the left, inhale, lift up. Exhale back to center, bend those elbows. Pause here for a moment. And then slowly start to press yourself up. Come to those hands and knees. And then go ahead and take yourself all the way, all the way to the floor for a moment. Good, draw those legs out. Extend them out and just kind of notice the sensations that are happening here. And taking any movement that feels natural here. Maybe again, those ankle circles, massaging the knees, wiggling the legs back and forth. Maybe even leaning back into the hands, open the front body a little bit. So then from here, coming into another little deeper form of this pose, if it's accessible to you. And again, if it's not, you can again lay onto your back straight away and go into that happy baby pose. So we're gonna do the Yogi Squats. We're gonna squat down. I like to start with my feet on something. If that's not there for you, you don't have a pillow or anything, you don't have to, you can go straight down, but take your feet a little bit wide. Press yourself up so you're in that nice low yogi squat. And then elbows are gonna come inside your knees. We're only gonna be here for 3 minutes, so not a super long time, but enough to feel that inner groin, backs of our legs, and then getting into that low back a little bit. And so again, if this isn't good for your knees, you would do the alternative, which would be laying onto your back. Just for clarification, then you're gonna hug those heels in and then just kind of draw those heels toward one another, but drawing the elbows away. So you're kind of getting into the same system, or you can even bring those knee heels up. So coming into that laying position of that happy baby, or in yin, it's dead bug. So we're already 1 minute through. And over time, maybe you don't need anything under those heels. It's definitely going to stimulate those meridians along the feet. About 1 more minute here. These 2 meridian lines are of the water element. Seeing how it has to do with a lot of fluids, especially yin practice. It helps bring more fluidity, more fluids to your joints, to the connective tissues around your joints and in the fascia that wraps around those muscles. So a couple more rounds of breath here. And then slowly round it forward. Let those hips drop down. If you're on anything, go ahead and take that all out from underneath. Draw those knees in. Give yourself a little rounding into the back. Hug those knees. And then from here, we're gonna do a few rocks on the spine, if that's okay for you. If that's not okay for you to rock on the spine, just lay down onto your back and hug your knees into your chest. But otherwise, we're gonna start to transition toward the floor. We're gonna have a twist and then Shavasana. So if you can, just kind of rock on that spine a few times. That's gonna stimulate that bladder meridian along the back. When you feel like you've had enough of that, start to come down to the back. So just pause there for a moment. Before we go into our twist, maybe it'll feel good to lift those hips, or maybe even just to extend the legs. Just coming into like a mini Shavasana for a moment. Let those hip flexors relax, let the hips open up for a few moments. So the twist we're going to go into is called cat pulling tail. So there's a few different things that you can do along the way depending on how deep you want this form of a variation. You can go into just a normal simple twist if you would like to, with two knees or one knee over the other. You have that option. We are going to go to the right first, so our right leg is going to come up into our body. And so if you're going to do cat pulling tail, you're going to take that leg, drop it over to the side. Maybe that leg goes straight. Maybe you're going to hold on to it. Maybe you prop it up on a block. I tend to like to have my knee bent, and then I have a block handy in case it gets too intense for my outer hip. And then you're going to slide that left hip underneath you. Just slide it underneath you, and then start to bend that bottom knee and see if you can take your opposite hand, that right hand, and grab onto the top of the foot. And then just kind of pull that foot back a little bit. You're gonna find that nice openness in the front of the thigh on that bottom leg. And then kind of roll that right shoulder back. That right shoulder may or may not touch. Usually it doesn't. It's a little bit of a heart opener here. So you're gonna find some rotation in the spine. Little bit of that sensation in the low back, maybe in that top shoulder, into the outer hip of that top leg, into the thigh of the bottom leg. And if it's okay for your neck, maybe you look to the right, or otherwise you just settle in here. And again, just settle in with that affirmation that you've had, or settle in with your breath, just noticing the body, the sensations that occur as you breathe. Taking a full inhale here. And let it go. Whatever form of twist you're in, draw that bottom knee to meet your top knee and roll over to your left side. It's going to come into this little fetal position for a moment. Take a couple breaths here. And then slowly roll yourself onto your back. Draw your knees up. Bring your head, neck, and shoulders and hips all in line. And then your choice, maybe hug those knees, maybe rock and roll on the spine again. Maybe just pause with your knees bent. So your choice, whatever's going to feel best to you right here. Take any movements that feel natural. No rush to get to the other side. And then when you are ready, start to make your way to your other side. Draw that left knee in toward the chest first. Extend the right leg, and then any form of twist if you're doing cat pulling tail. That right leg goes over. Sorry, the right leg is under. Draw that right hip underneath the left. And then bend that bottom leg, that right leg grabbing onto the top of the foot. And then draw the knee back away from the direction you're looking. And then try to relax the legs as much as you can. And then take a couple breaths, let yourself kind of surrender into this position. Notice where you might need support. And then start to settle back into that affirmation. And then noticing the way the body moves, noticing the differences as you breathe on this side. See if you can relax, especially that bottom leg. It tends to want to hold on to some muscle energy. See if you can relax. About 1 more minute here. And taking a full inhale here. Let it go. Slowly start to draw both knees over to the right. Roll onto that right arm. Roll yourself into a little ball here, allowing that spine to come back to neutral. And then when you're ready, start to bring yourself back onto your back. And then your choice, either pause here with the knees bent, maybe draw the knees in, maybe rock a little bit on that spine again. Whatever you need here. Maybe it's finding a little internal rotation, finding some wiper legs with your legs here. We've done a lot of external rotation. Good to draw some of that internal rotation here. And then once you're ready, once you feel complete, take any other motions that you might need before heading into Shavasana. Use any props that you might need, maybe under your knees, under your back, under your neck. Maybe even placing something over your belly, over your pelvis to help kind of weigh you down a little bit. Just feeling supported here in the best way that you can to allow yourself to surrender into relaxation. If you can, maybe cover your eyes for a few moments. Just allowing yourself to settle in here. Maybe take up a little bit more space than you normally do. Once you get there, take a deep inhale and let it go. Just allow yourself to settle into stillness, into relaxation. No need to think about anything. If thoughts do come up, give them a little loving kindness and send them away. Just allowing yourself to be here with your body, your breath, and into your relaxation. I'll bring us out of Shavasana with a bell. Take rest. Feeling free to stay here if you feel you need more time to restore and rest. Otherwise, allow your breath to come in a little bit deeper. Maybe bring some movement into the fingers, the toes, the wrists and ankles. And taking those arms back behind your head. Maybe interlink the fingers, reaching back, maybe lengthen through the left side and then the right side. Taking a big inhale. As you exhale, slide the feet together, lengthen through the spine from toes to fingers. And then slowly bend those knees. Your choice here, you can either hug the knees in, maybe do a little windshield wiper again with the legs, whatever's going to feel best to you right now. And then using your arm as a pillow, roll over to your left side. Trying to bring back some of that right side energy after going through that yin practice of slowing down and being still. Just kind of notice the shifts and changes mentally and physically in the body. And then when you're ready, mindfully press yourself up. Coming all the way back up, having a comfortable seat again. And just allow yourself, once you've come into that comfortable seat, to close the eyes. Bring your hands to your heart center. Allow yourself to come into the room, onto your mat, and into your body. Connecting again to that affirmation that you've had throughout this practice. And just allow that to settle in. Thanking yourself for being here. Giving some attention to those two meridians, the kidney and the bladder. Allowing the strength, the energy, and the stillness of this practice to help you as you transition off your mat into your evening ahead. We'll seal this practice with a sigh of the breath. Exhale fully here. Inhaling. Bowing your head for a moment. Think of one thing in your life that you truly are grateful for. And then hold on to that image in your mind's eye as you raise your head with a smile. Thank you for being here. Drink lots of water, eat your veggies with sunblock. Namaste.